Hello there and welcome to a brand new lesson. This is How Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. In this lesson, we are looking at how to construct and copy angles using a compass. In our previous lesson, we actually did that with a protractor. This time around, we want to focus on how to use the compass. These are the lesson objectives, and I do hope by the end of this lesson, it will be achieved. Without much ado, let's quickly look at it. So let's get to know the why. One might ask, if we can even use protractor to construct angles, then why do we need a compass? Well, that's a nice question. The first reason why we need to learn how to use the compass is because of precision. You see, if you want to use the protractor, it is limited by our eyesight and then the thickness of the lines. You see, but then if you want to be more precise, then we need to use the compass, because the compass actually uses physical distance, that is the radius of a circle, which is much more exact. Now, the second one is if you want to actually make patterns. So you need to draw angles of about 100, and you want to make sure they all look the same and then form a particular pattern. I'll tell you that copying with the compass is far faster than, it is much more faster than using the protractor. Then using the compass also teaches us the relationship between circles and angles and all that. See, so these and many other reasons are why we need to learn how to use the compass and not only the protractor. So with all that said, let's follow these instructions here to see how we can copy an angle. This is the angle we want to copy. You see, we are going to follow these instructions to learn how to copy angles. Now, our first step says you should take note of the original and then use the original to get a new baseline. You see, so we need a new baseline. You know what the baseline is. So if this is our angle we want to copy, then this here is our baseline. This is also the arm of the angle. So they are both arms of the angle, but then since this forms the base, we call it the baseline. And then this here becomes the vertex of the angle. So all it's saying is let's get a baseline. So what you are going to do at this point is you are taking your ruler and then you draw a line that you'll be referring to it as your baseline. So I'll draw a straight line of any measure. Now, as we have drawn our baseline, the next thing we need to take care of is to introduce a vertex on the baseline. You know, an angle needs a vertex. That is where the two lines will meet. So I'm going to draw a vertex right here. I'll just put it, let me change the color and then put it somewhere around here. You see? So we now have our baseline and we also have our vertex. The next instruction says we should get the first arc. The first arc here is normally called the reference arc. How do we get our first arc, which we call the reference arc? So you take your compass and pin at this point over here. So you pin at the vertex of the angle, the previous angle. Then you open the compass to an appreciable length. So I'm just going to open it to this length. And then what you do is you draw an arc. You see? So with this drawn arc, you make sure you don't close the compass. No, neither do you open. The same measure that you use to draw this arc, you now come and then stand at this point, your initial point over here, this new vertex of the angle you want to construct. We come and stand there, and then what we do is we use that same opening to draw another arc. You see, we do that. So this becomes our reference arc, and it has helped us to draw an arc on the new baseline we want to work on. The fourth step says we should measure the opening. Measuring the opening here simply means you take your compass once again, and this time around, the previous arc you drew, this one, you pin at where it touches your baseline. So I'll pin around here. But first of all, let me put a point there so that it becomes more visible. So I'm putting that point here. You see, and that point is the point of intersection between the arc and then the baseline. Now with that point, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my compass and I make sure it touches that point. And we said we want to measure the opening. So measuring the opening here simply means you open it and make sure, you see, this is the opening, right? But then I want to make sure it is equal to this point and then this other point over here, which is also the point where the arc touch the two lines. So let's do that. I'm going to move my compass here and then make sure I just open it to this length. You see, that is all I need. Once again, we take our compass, bring it to this point over here, and make sure our pencil touches this other point. So it is with this opening that we come all the way back here, and then you make sure the compass spins at your previous arc's intersection with your baseline. So this is it. And all I'm going to do is to draw an arc so it touches that arc. Now with this, we identify this new point that has been formed, which is an intersection of both, what do you call it, both arcs. And with that, you are 90% through. You see, so all you need to do now is to take your ruler and then draw a straight line through these points. So with my ruler, I'm just going to position and then draw a straight line this way. So I'm going to draw a straight line, and that is all. That is just the measure of this angle is the same as the measure of this angle. So let's measure and see if it is actually true. Confirm that we have actually copied an angle. So measuring the first angle, let's look at what we have. You can see we have something around 45 degrees. You see, it will pass through the 45-degree calibration. Now let's come here and then also check. So as you can see, it also passes through the 45 degrees, right? So this is how we do what? We copy angles. Let me quickly go over it one more time to enhance your understanding. So our first instruction, or the first step, is to get our baseline. So we drew our baseline, which you can see over here. So this was our baseline we used. This very one was our baseline. Now the baseline can be anyhow. The most important thing is it should be a straight line. With our baseline drawn, we need the reference arc. But before we get our reference arc, make sure you get a point you are going to call the vertex. So with that, we stand at the vertex of this angle and then we draw an arc this way. Now we use that same arc or the same opening of the compass to stand at this vertex here and also draw an arc this way. With that arc drawn, we need to measure the opening here. How do we do that? You stand right here and then open your compass to the side. After which, you then come and then stand here and then you draw an arc with that opening to intersect this arc you have here. With that, you do have 3 points. You can draw lines through, get your angle. As simple as that. So basically, this is how we copy angles. Now, there are some tips you need to know, especially when using your compass. Now, with my compass you see over here, this is actually electronic, so I wouldn't have the problem I'm coming to explain to you. But then, this is where we have our screw. Most times, when it loses, it affects how rigid the radius of your compass is. So it is always advisable you tighten the screw. Anytime you want to use it, make sure it is tight enough so that it doesn't affect your radius. Secondly, use pencils that have a very small tip, because drawing ghost lines affect the accuracy of whatever you are constructing. You see, and anytime you want to use the pencil of your compass, you always need to make sure that the pin is right on the point, the anchor point you want it to be on. These are some tips for you with regards to using your compass. I do hope this lesson was helpful. This is Half Beyond Numbers, where we learn maths the easy way. If this was your first time on this channel and you think it would be of help to you, you can choose to subscribe so that anytime I release the video, you'll be notified as well. See you in our next lesson, where we actually kick off with constructing angles. Bye for now, and do stay safe.